Welcome to Shameless Plugs, where aspiring novelists J.A. George and Samantha the writer
Hello!
will be talking about reading, writing, pop culture entertainment, and plugging our own work.
Yes, we are plugging our own work. But first, throwback to last week. George.
It's fine, just call me John, that's
Okay.
fine.
John...
Not a secret that my name is John.
It's true. It's not a secret. So, yes. I'm drinking tea this morning. Trying to get moving. So, to throw back to last week, John had created a movie list because he's the list guy. And
Yes.
I was thinking, that was kind of cool, and I liked it, so I decided to copycat. And I think I also promised to put together a list of some of my favorite movies. Now, the difference between our two lists is this: I don't watch movies. So...
I obsess over them. She doesn't really watch them
I don't really
much.
watch them. So this list has a collection of movies on it that I do enjoy, but are also probably the movies I rewatch the most. So, and there's only 4 of them, because again, I don't watch movies.
That's fair criteria. I know other people who, they like movies fine, but they're not all into them. It's not like they study the directors.
Yes.
They don't study
No.
the screenwriters. There are plenty of people like that out there. So I know plenty of people who own like 12 movies and that's it. Whereas I own over 2,000, but whatever. And I'm not making that number up for the record, but...
I don't know where I would put 2,000 movies. I don't know where I'd put them.
Yeah, I'm actually wrestling with that problem. But anyway.
Oh, okay, well, you know.
I own over 2,000 DVDs. That includes TV shows and
Uh-oh.
cartoons and movies and so on. It's not all movies, but
Nice.
I do own over 2,000 DVDs.
Again, I couldn't even imagine. It would just be like... And I made a face, but you can't see that because this is a podcast.
That's true.
So, anyway, okay, so we will start with Beauty and the Beast, animated version.
All right.
It's one of my favorites since I was a kid.
Part of the Disney Renaissance.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I love books. I love love.
Mm-hmm.
And
She does. Seriously, anytime somebody that we know, whether it's a coworker or a friend, they talk about how they get engaged, I'm like, just say your 3 words. Just say your 3 words.
I love love.
Yes.
And so that movie to me is both. It is books. It is love. It is wonderful. So that is that's in my top 4.
So I have a question related to
Yes.
that. Since
Yes.
I know you saw the live action as well.
I did.
How would you compare the two?
So I actually did not love the live action.
Okay.
But this also comes after I saw the live action Lion King, which I mean is incredible.
Yeah.
So, I did not love the live action. I thought it was good, and I was glad that I went to see it, but I kind of would prefer the animated.
All right, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And,
I liked both,
okay.
but I also I don't have the same love of the animated one that you do, so
Yeah.
I'm very skeptical going into the live action movie of The Lion King for that
Yes.
reason.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, if you cast anyone else as the voice of Scar other than Jeremy Irons, you have immediately failed me as a viewer, and I will hate your movie forever. So,
Heard it here
There's that.
first. Yeah, so I find that I can get lost in the animated version easier than I got lost in the live action.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
So,
That's fair, I was just curious.
yeah. So the next one on my list, and we've had conversations about this movie before,
Okay.
is Titanic.
Okay. For the record, I don't know what her choices are going into this conversation. I wanted to be just as surprised as our listeners.
Yes,
So.
he did. So, but this has come up before in other movie conversations because I do adore this movie. I'm kind of obsessed with the history of the Titanic. I think it's a fascinating time in history. I think it's a fascinating event. I think everything that led up to what happened is interesting. So, but then again, I like the movie because there's love in it.
There's love. Yes.
There's love.
Yes.
And the length doesn't bother me. I never had any qualms about that. So, yeah. But there's love.
Okay.
And so that's my next one.
Okay.
The third one on my list could be a little bit of a surprise. It's a lesser-known movie. It's An Officer and a Gentleman. It's from the 80s.
Okay.
I adore this movie. I think...
There's love.
There's love.
There is love.
There is love.
Yes.
If you don't know An Officer and a Gentleman, it's about a guy who's played by Richard Gere, who's down on his luck. He joins the Navy to be a pilot, and it's kind of his journey through that, who he meets, the people he meets, and how he gets through that. So it's a really great movie. It has love in it, and I really enjoy it.
It has an iconic scene where he's in his uniform and carries her, and I've never actually seen the movie.
Yep, it does.
I've actually never seen that movie, but I still know that scene.
It has a very iconic scene with iconic songs, and but I think it's good. I mean, I think it's good for both parties. My husband watched it with me because I made him, and he stayed awake through most of it.
That's a ringing endorsement if I've ever heard
Yep.
it.
Yes. So that is that one, and then at the top of my list is Howl's Moving Castle. I adore this movie. It's a Miyazaki film, and I don't know if you're familiar with Miyazaki, but it's full of the delightful random that is his movies with, good messaging, good animation. It's pretty to look at.
For those of you who don't know Miyazaki, I would say he's one of the most respected filmmakers in the history of Japan, but he is, it's animated films.
It is.
But he is considered one of the most respected filmmakers in the history of Japan, and he really does deserve that title. I mean, he is a fantastic filmmaker. If you are not somebody who enjoys animated movies, don't write off his work because of that, because they are very intelligent and mature, and they are not... It's not like going to see Trolls in America. It's a completely different experience.
It really is, and I think a lot of his movies could have made my list, but Howl's is definitely my favorite of those. He just,
And I like that, but I would have actually put Mononoke ahead of it.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who would put Mononoke ahead of it, and...
I get it. It's a great. Your pick is a great movie. Yeah. I think it's a fantastic movie.
I know a lot of people would put Mononoke ahead of that, or Spirited Away. I think a lot of people would put Spirited Away.
I wouldn't put Spirited Away ahead of it. The Spirited Away was another great movie, but I would not put it ahead of.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think Howl's is too modern for some people.
I could see that.
I could see new. That.
Yeah, I could see that.
So, anyway, those are, like I said, there's only 4 of them. And they are the 4 that occupy my shelf. I have other movies, but...
Don't love them enough to make the list.
Shrug. That's shrug.
I could have made a very obscure Kids in the Hall reference there that nobody, except for my one friend in New York, I don't know anybody else on the planet who would have gotten it, so I'm not even going to bother.
It would have been 2 shows in a row that you referenced Kids in the Hall, though.
Well, I've already referenced Kids in the Hall. Okay, I'm just going to make a reference now. Sorry, it's not a terrier.
I don't care.
It's not a terrier.
It's not a terrier.
So,
for
go watch Kids in the Hall if you want to get the reference.
It's not a terrier.
Yeah.
So, we've been speaking about amazing directors and movies and stuff, and now we're going to talk about amazing writing. Ours.
Yes.
Because that's what we do here. We are plugging our own work and talking about writing. And I have to turn this one over to J.A. over there because he found this article and it's pretty spot on.
So, for those of you who are writers out there, you may be familiar with the term plotter and pantser. If you are not, fear not. We're going to give a quick definition of the two. Plotter and pantser refer to the different ways that people go about approaching their writing and developing their stories. So plotters are people who plan out their work ahead of time, whether it is an outline or they do a synopsis first. Plotters are the people who go into their writing, whether it's their novel or their novella or their short story or screenplay or whatever, they go in with a plan. They know what the major beats are, they know what the transitions are, all those kind of things. Pantsers are the people who have a general story idea and then they sit down and start writing and just see where the story takes them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, this conversation is interesting for the two of us because we occupy very different camps on this topic. We are kind of night and day when it comes to writing.
We are. Very much so.
I want to give you some quotes from, or some thoughts from published novelists out there to give you a better sense of what a plotter and a pantser are. So, suspense author J.A. Jance, her quote was, "I don't plan, I don't outline. I have hated outlines since 6th grade geography and I can't do Roman numerals." In literature and life, I'm sorry, I'm reading from an article, so I was about to misquote a little bit there. In literature and life, she is her own first audience, and by the way, the article that I am reading from, we will have a link on our site so you can read it in its entirety, and you can see just how I completely flubbed this portion of the podcast. But continuing her quote, "Premeditation, it kills the suspense. I just like to see where the story goes." Another
Agreed. Sorry.
You're giving away the punchline,
I'm
Samantha.
sorry.
Another one from romance author Jane Graves. "For me, it's kind of like remembering the words to an old song. If you ask me the words, I can't tell you. But if the song comes on the radio and I'm in the middle of listening to it, I can tell you what comes next." She said she has a sense of where she's going, but absolutely nothing come alive until she starts writing down the words. On the other hand, you've got Catherine Ann Porter, who said, "If I didn't know the ending of a story, I wouldn't begin. I always write my last line, my last paragraph, my last page first." So I'm going to repeat part of that. If I didn't know the ending of a story, I wouldn't begin. And I am repeating that because that is me.
It is.
It is me. True. Literally, my first novel, the one that I am trying to get published right now, I knew the last line before I ever started writing. Literally, I knew the last scene, I knew the last line. This novel is intended to be the first in a series of 6. I know how every single one of them ends already. I know the very last line in my last book. I'll tell you what it is right now. Novel number 6 will end with the following words. 4 words. Ever been to London? That's the last line in my book. That is the last line in novel number 6.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn it over to Samantha because this is going to be, I'm going to imagine, a robust discussion. But yeah, I am very much team plotter. Team plotter. Right here.
Yeah, so I'm on the other side of things. I'm on team pantser. I can't tell you what the last line of my novel is. I can't really even tell you how it's going to end. Because typically when I write, I get to a point and I go, oh yeah, that's the end. So yeah, I don't enjoy outlines. For me, it's just discovery the entire time I'm writing. I start and I go and I go and I go, and if I keep going, great. If I don't, I don't. It was kind of funny because when this article came up, it kind of showed us just how different our writing styles were, and it made me remember that I was working on a different story one time, and I'm going along with it, and then all of a sudden, just my main character died. I was like, well, that's inconvenient. I guess that's the end. So, needless to say, that one didn't go very far, but it's all about self-discovery and surprises for me.
See, and for me, if I don't know where I'm going, it's so easy for me to get stuck and get writer's block. The planning process for me is what helps me. If I know I've got a beginning and I know I've got an end, and I know, okay, if I can break it into if it's 20 chapters, 20 sections, I know chapter 1 is going to start this way and end this way. Chapter 2 is going to pick up and then it's going to end here. filling in that middle, discovery is an important part of writing. It is, honestly, I think it's probably one of the top 2 or 3. Look, I'm making a list.
You are making a list, yes.
One of the top, as I'm talking, I'm making a list right now.
Yes.
One of the top 2 or 3.
And he's so excited.
Yes.
He's very excited
You can't
right
see
now.
my hands waving
No,
around
you
right
can't,
now, but I'm making weird gestures in the air and
it's
everything.
like a windmill.
Yeah.
It's like a windmill over
Yes, yes. So, I'm happy that I can provide free air conditioning for you, Samantha.
I appreciate that.
For me, the discovery comes in the dialogue, and the discovery is one of the top 2 or 3 things that I enjoy most about writing. But for me, it comes with how I fill in those details. It's how I fill in. I do discover my characters as I go. Even though I know where they're going to start and where they're going to end, what they're going to do in the middle is the discovery portion for me. But if I don't have that structure, I can't go anywhere. I just hit walls. It's writer's block for me.
It is an interesting balance, I think, for pantsers, because I think you thrive so much on just the act of the writing, and it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that my character was gonna like lemons, but he does, or I didn't really know that he was gonna buy pants today, but he did. Like, so I think that the one thing that article says is that plotters tend to get done faster than pantsers because they do have a direction, which is absolutely true in this case. J.A.'s been cranking through this novel and is cranking through it, and I'm like, he goes, "Where are you today?" And I'm like, I think I'm about halfway done. Yeah.
But the flip side to that, is for plotters, and I've had this experience. I think both of these have pros and cons. There's a balance there with both of this.
There are.
The flip side is that if I do hit writer's block, I don't have a way to get out of it. I practically have to start my outline process over, or I have to go back to the outline and redo major parts of it at least. I can't just write myself out of it, which is an advantage to pantsing.
And it's that kind of advantage, because we've had this conversation where it's like, he's like, oh man, I totally wrote myself into a corner, but I'll just get out of it, or I'll write, I tried this and it didn't work, so I tried this and it didn't work, and then I tried this and I got out somehow, and I learned this about my character.
And the flip side of that is we've literally had this conversation multiple times where Samantha has talked about how she wrote her way out of something, whereas I've had the same experience, except that my experience was, well, now I've got to change this later in the novel, and I got to change that later in the novel, so I got to go back and I got to redo my outline, and that's the trade-off there.
It's interesting though, because when I hear Jay saying, oh yeah, I gotta go do this in the novel, and I gotta go do this in the novel, and then I have to go back here, I'm like, man, you must remember everything. Because for me, that happens when I get to the end, and then I kind of write the whole thing, and then I go back to the beginning, and I start, and I do it again.
Yeah.
And that happens to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally did this at the end, which makes no more sense now in the beginning, so now I have to change it. It's a good thing I went back.
Yeah.
Whereas he remembers everything, so...
Well, and I think it's because I spend, honestly, as much time on the plotting and the layout phase, the planning phase, as I do the actual writing phase. The writing comes relatively quickly because, I mean, the characters that I'm writing about... Now, part of that is not because of the plotting pantsing. It's because I've been living with these characters since I was 12.
Right.
I mean, literally, I have been living with the characters in my first novel. I have been living with some version of them. They've changed, they've mutated, they've become different over the years, but I've known them since I was 12. So the writing process goes quickly as a mix of knowing my characters because I've been with them for so long, but also because of the fact that I have a game plan going in.
Right. And I think that's I like the fact that you use the word you've known them, because I think that regardless of whether you're a plotter or a pantser, and we'll have to have a character conversation because it's a bigger conversation than this.
I think I know where you're going, but
I think that's a really important distinction, because if you just sit down and write people, you're just writing people. You're not exploring a person.
Right.
And so it's important to get to know your characters, which is why, like, my comment earlier about lemons and pants may have been funny, but there's some truth to it, too, because the fact that you have a character that likes citrus fruit but won't eat asparagus is a small detail, but it's an important detail.
Agreed. And we absolutely have to have a conversation about character on a future episode. We also have to have a conversation about world. Yeah,
absolutely. Which I think we both are building worlds, but we're building very different worlds.
Yes.
And you've been building yours for a while.
And I think that the interesting thing, and again, I want to save this for a future podcast because this is going to be a longer conversation. I think one of the interesting things is ultimately we are building worlds that in some ways are kind of similar.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, they're certainly not identical, but there are some similarities there. And yet the way that we're doing it, our thought process in building them, and the way that we're doing it from a practical writing standpoint is completely different, which I find really interesting.
Agreed.
But the reason why I bring up world in the context of character that you were talking about is I think that part of the discovery process and part of the plotter pantser process and part of creating living, breathing individuals instead of just writing people is there's a context for everything that happens. There's a world that they live in. There are societal norms and all those kind of things that go into, you know, who they are. And that's part of the plotting pantsing process for me.
Yeah, and I can see that. I think, you know, from the pantser side of things, which is a great word because it keeps making me think of panzer, which makes me feel very powerful.
I can't think of Panzer without thinking Panzer Dragoon, which is a video game reference because, as we've established, I am a dork. Next episode, you might be... Well, no, actually not next episode, but in a future episode, you will be getting video game lists from me.
Yep, it's true.
Our next episode after this is our Halloween episode, which I'm so freaking excited about.
I'm so excited. Halloween is a very important holiday around here.
These parts.
Around these parts.
Yes.
It's important to both of us in different ways. So we're super excited for our next episode, which is our Halloween episode.
Yes.
So are we plotters, pantsers?
I think we both know what team we're on. I'm team plotter.
I'm team pantser.
But we want to hear from you guys.
Definitely.
Let us know on social media. All the links are on our website. You can find everything. You'll find a link to the article we were talking about, plotters, pantsers. Maybe you're a mix of the two.
Yeah, if you're a plantser.
Yeah. Or, I had it in my head a second ago. A plantser or a...
Plotzer?
Potter?
Potter?
A potter?
Oh.
Okay. If you're a plantser or a potter, then let us know that too, because I think that most writers have a little bit of the other in them. Just you may lean heavily toward one side or the other.
Yes, agreed. I think that you don't necessarily have to know what you are either, but it is a fun way to look at writing from a different way. Yes. And sometimes that exercise can really open your brain up to other things. So
yes.
I definitely hope we get a lot of pantsers listening to this because
Team
pantsers
plotter.
are awesome.
Team plotter.
Pantsers are awesome. Yes. So I think that you know brings us to our plug. I think this brings us to a plug here. So here at Shameless Plugs, we pride ourselves on timeliness. It's really important to us. Neither one of us likes to be late to anything.
Yes, exactly. It makes me nervous to be late.
Yeah.
In fact, I get anxious and irritable. I hate being late.
Yeah, it's just a bad thing. So that's why we are plugging the solar eclipse that happened on August 21st.
That is correct. That is correct.
Yes. Which, I mean, it was awesome. Well, okay, so I guess some context though. Yeah. My husband and I chased the eclipse, so we were in that throng of people that followed it or went somewhere to see it. We went to Charleston, South Carolina, just south of that. We were at 99.3% totality where we were located, and we were on a natural beach in the Botany Bay area. If you've never been to a natural beach or a restored beach, they're incredible, and I would recommend going. So the science nerd duo of Stephen and I took a trip, and we watched the eclipse, and it was fantastic.
Stephen being Samantha the writer's husband.
Yes, Stephen being Stephen the husband.
Yeah, Stephen the husband.
Stephen the husband, yes. So we went adventuring and saw the eclipse, and I will definitely give the eclipse a hair plug. I loved it. I think...
Hair plug.
Hair plug.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a momentous event. As a reminder, our rating scale... Hair plug is the top of the list. It just makes people feel better.
Yep.
Followed by spark plug, bathtub plug, the nasty old condiment plug,
disgusting.
And the gulp, which is the lowest rating. Samantha the writer giving the eclipse a hair plug.
I am giving the eclipse a hair plug, even though I did not see it in its totality. Just the experience of one, just a natural phenomena that you never know if you're going to get to see those or not.
Yes.
Being on a beach with my person, with a lightning storm behind us, it was pretty incredible. So I give the eclipse and the experience a hair plug.
So my experience, I'm not going to spend nearly as much time on it. I was at work. Samantha and we actually work together.
We do.
Which is how we met and became friends. There's more on that on our website as well. But as a office drone, until the revolution comes, I spent the eclipse in the office building. There was a conference room where somebody had left a pair of eclipse glasses, and like 7 of us were in there looking up at the sky, taking turns with the glasses. My experience was not nearly as majestic, epic, whatever phrase you want to use to describe it. It wasn't quite the same. So I'm going to give the eclipse a spark plug.
Okay.
Only because my experience was as great as a natural phenomenon. Sure, it's a hair plug. Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Right,
Fine. It could have the hair plug, you know. Moon in front of the sun.
Moon
whatever.
in front of the sun.
But for my personal experience, spark plug.
Okay. I mean, I think a spark plug is respectable, especially with the location that you were in.
Yes,
so.
it wasn't quite as majestic with looking at the top of a parking garage and craning my neck at like a very uncomfortable angle to try and look up through a window to where the sun was.
And being stuffed in a conference room with 7 other people. I mean, if anyone has ever been in a conference room, you know that they're not spacious.
Yeah.
And people.
But when either the novel gets published or the revolution comes, I won't have to deal with conference rooms
This
any
is
longer.
true, yeah. I mean, even if there were conference rooms in your future, they would be a lot better than...
Yeah, and they would be conference rooms where I'm the reason we're in a conference room.
Exactly. So, this is shameless plug saying we're not against conference rooms.
No.
They're just not our favorite place.
No. I prefer basement studios like the one we're in right now.
Agreed, yes. I agree with that. I prefer basement studios. We're super high-tech here.
Yes.
We are.
Yes.
So, do you have a plug? Do you have something you want to plug?
I do have a plug. And then I think we got something else to talk about after that. But I do have a plug. Shameless Plugs is based out of the Cincinnati area. We are both from Cincinnati, and we are proud of our hometown in a lot of ways. There's some things we'd probably change, but in general,
I think so, yeah.
In general, we're proud of our hometown.
Yeah.
There is an event coming up that as writers and as readers, we wholeheartedly support and we want to make you aware of. If you are in the Cincinnati area, it is very much worth checking out. It is the Books by the Banks event.
Yep.
It is coming up on Saturday, October 28th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It is at the Duke Energy Convention Center. There will be national authors there signing their work. There's a lot of great books to buy. There are panels to attend. If you are an aspiring writer, there are always great panels that will give you information on how to get published or how to go about generating ideas, all those kind of things. It is a fantastic event. very much worth checking out. You can find out more information about it at booksbythebanks.org. And we will have a link to them on our website as well. So if you're in the Cincinnati area, definitely check it out.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think you had another connection to the eclipse that you wanted to talk about, didn't you?
I did, yeah. Which, just because it was great. Tossing back to Charleston, South Carolina, it is actually the t-shirt that I'm wearing right now. Emphasis on T, because this is my t-shirt. T-E-A.
So clever.
I love tea. And Charleston actually has the only tea plantation in the U.S. located there. So when I was in Charleston, I went to the plantation. I am drinking tea from there. I'm wearing my t-shirt from there, and it's beautiful. So if you love tea, or even if you don't love tea but you just love beauty, you should go and check them out. I'll have a picture of my t-shirt, and it's green, so it's a green t-shirt, and I'm drinking green tea, so I'm all tied together today.
All comes together.
It all comes together. I would check them out, and we will link to there with the link to the shirt, like we always do.
Yes, and for my shirt this week, I'm not going to tell you what it is. You will have to visit us at shamelessplugspodcast.com. I will say, however, that it is a reference to the 40th anniversary of something that was absolutely amazing and that changed a lot of lives. So it is very much worth visiting our site and checking it out, and then clicking on links and visiting the organizations and people and shirts and so on that we are linking from the site, including jageorgewriting.com and samanthawriter.com to read more of our work. That's going to do it for this episode, I think.
I think it is. Yeah, I think we're done.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Bye.